What's going on? Welcome back to Conversations with a Martial Artist, and we are at episode number 40 today. I'm very pleased that I get to share this one with you. I thought my own stupidity meant I lost this file, but although it's been a bit of a break, it has been rescued, and now you get to hear my conversation with my buddy Pete Irving. He is a phenomenal martial artist, Brazilian Jiu Jitsu black belt, former professional fighter, now a coach to many high-ranking guys, and he has an incredible depth of knowledge. Tons and tons of experience himself. He was a professional fighter for a number of years, competing in various different combat sports. Very open mind as well. He's learned from some of the best guys in the world and trained a number of different martial arts. And the way that he breaks down martial arts and understands martial arts is phenomenal, to be perfectly honest. I think there's a lot to be gained here. He's very insightful. He's very honest in this conversation as well. And I think there's a lot of benefits, a lot of good things that you guys will be able to get from this episode. So please do enjoy it. Before we dive in, please don't forget to support Pete and everything he's doing. He's teaching down at Newcastle Fight Centre. If you drop them a follow, I've got Pete's Instagram as well as the gym's Instagram in the description below on whatever platform you're listening to. While you're here, don't forget to give the podcast a quick follow too on whatever platform you're listening to. Much appreciated. Share it around with another martial artist. But without further ado, I will let you enjoy Pete. In which case, Pete, thank you very much for being here, having me here, and hosting me for the weekend. It's been a wicked time. Good few sessions in. Some very tough rolls. I'm very sweaty and gross right now, so I appreciate that. It's always a sign of a good time. So for people that don't know you, most people watching the podcast are here for you rather than me. So I know you've been on some other podcasts and you've spoken about your background at great length before, so I won't dig you too deep into it. But I know you've got a really interesting sort of early days of MMA background. I think it'd be quite interesting if you don't mind just giving us a skim through.
I wasn't right at the very start. I think right at the very start there was like Ian Freeman would probably be the big one. Obviously he's local to us, so we knew who Ian Freeman was. Just like people, even in the absence of a well-developed internet, people would just talk about Ian Freeman, and so like he went straight to the top, and it looked like, oh, that's a real possibility. Like, unfortunately, I hadn't realized I'm not Ian Freeman. I could get the top too. But yeah. Turns out he was quite talented. But,
It's not just deciding.
Yeah. But I mean, that was a large part of it. They got him there just deciding that I'm going to do it. But so I was I don't know. But I'd get lumped in with first wave now with the length of time. But I was very much under the impression that I was second wave.
Okay.
And we did have people who were already trying to figure it out. And there was John Atkin at the Advanced Fighting Centre. And he put together a package that he called cross training, where he'd been to the USA and trained with the Machados, and just put together like a package. He was part of the Jeff Thompson scene, which that was not precisely MMA, but it very much led to
they started mixing things a lot more. They were more self-defense oriented though, aren't they?
But they would do like the Animal Day events, which John hosted some of those, which was like,
those are crazy.
It kind of like it amounts now to like a sort of like an amateur MMA sort of thing, with this sort of like reasonable strictures on like don't gouge people's eyes out and that sort of stuff. So John had already started to figure it out, so that helped us massively on the way. Dave Elliott had already been and trained in London with Mark Walder, who had been schooled by Hoyce Gracie, and then he came back from London and was teaching here. So like it wasn't entirely this unaided journey, but there was a lot of teaching yourself, and sort of come full circle a little bit now. Where like actually what we were doing by teaching ourselves off grainy videos that weren't necessarily the best quality in terms of visual and audio, but more like necessarily people. What am I trying to say? people weren't necessarily giving away all of their secrets.
Yeah.
And things weren't fully developed and integrated in terms of mixed martial arts. So even if you had a good wrestling DVD, it didn't account for some of the other things. So really the best way was to go and get a good teacher. But now there is such a wealth of good quality information available, that there's an excess.
Yeah, hugely.
So it's it's sort of like we're the first sort of generation, or well, not the first generation, but people who experienced food scarcity, as in the entirety of human history have. Like some of them are still alive. Like it wasn't guaranteed that you were going to get 3 square meals a day. Being attacked. Can you hear that?
Yeah. Well, I don't know what it likes the microphone, doesn't it? That's going to be annoying now for the rest of the podcast.
Yeah. So
sorry, the food scarcity.
Yeah. So like there are still people alive that experience
these things.
Food scarcity that all humans through all of history have, and then we've experienced an excess. Like there is too much food.
Yeah.
But it's not necessarily nutritious food. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah.
Like so we can have an excess of foods. We can be overfed and undernourished. Like now here we're the first generation that has experienced this thing where like we have an excess of information. Like we were struggling to find adequate information and get adequate tutelage early on when I began. And now the problem is the reverse. There's so much information, that people are dragged in too many different directions.
Yeah.
And then if you take if we follow the food analogy, think like, okay, so I can eat a bag of biscuits, and then I want to eat the entire packet, and I'm still not satisfied. You know what I mean? So when people snack on YouTube clips, like they have an excess of information, and no, they're not receiving nutrition from it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And then you get the same problem as a teacher. You think like, imagine there, like, let's keep with the food. I don't know why I want the food.
No, do you know what? I really like that as an analogy.
Imagine there, okay, I'm a chef, and I've been trained by, who's a famous chef? Marco Pierre White.
Sure.
Okay, some Michelin star chef has trained me, and I've learned the method, and then I prepare a delicious meal. Maybe I've even grown some of the foods myself. I've carefully selected them. I've spent all day preparing. You come to my restaurant and you say, like, I just brought my packed lunch. Well, you can't. I brought McDonald's.
Yeah, I'll have the crisps.
And you say like, well, I'll still pay the bill. But I brought the McDonald's. I'm going to eat that. And you say like, so like you get this problem. Now that like people like come in and you think like, I've got this carefully prepared program. That I'm giving people courses of instruction. Until like you have a complete meal. And I say, nah, I'm just gonna do my own thing. It's an insult, wouldn't it? You get kicked out of a restaurant for doing that. You just say, no way, you don't do that. But like somehow like it's almost
it's
oppressive.
Very normalized here, like with Jiu Jitsu and things, especially now.
But it's a difficult one because you also have to give people like the freedom to express themselves. You can't be completely rigid. Like they actually can't get really good by just eating what's on the menu. But also, like that means like if you've got a kid, well, you say like eat anything you want. They're going to eat ice cream for breakfast. Yeah. Like they're going to eat 3 bags of crisps for their lunch. Like so it's you can't allow this.
Yeah, you can't allow total freedom.
Yeah. But you also have to allow an adult to select from a menu. You can't say like it's prison. Like you get what you're given and you're grateful for it.
Yeah.
So it's a tricky one where like it's a hard one to navigate as a coach. I think like like when I was training in like I selected like elite environments. Like guys were professionals. And so I had a professional coach with a professional setup, with a professional timetable, and now like most of the people that I'm working with are like, they've got jobs, families, or they're doing a degree, or like
they don't have a regular timetable.
I think like I could make a great curriculum to get somebody from white belt to blue belt. Like if it was like school, like everybody starts at the same time with the same level of knowledge in September, and then they've got to come Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. I could make a great curriculum.
You have no choice. You do these.
Like, but this guy, his kid's got a football match on Saturday, so he can't come today. This guy, he's got a paper to turn in, so he's got to take a week off. And so everybody's at different places, so it's very hard to get a good schedule, like, so then what you end up with is like, even when you've planned a good progression, you end up like 50% of the people, like, you've got to go back and do it again.
Yeah, you didn't get that bit. Yeah.
Or you end up with a pick and mix. Like, I'm talking more specifically about jiu-jitsu training here.
Yeah.
It's a little bit different with striking training.
It's exactly what I was going to ask, actually, funny enough, because I think that is a big thing with jiu-jitsu, more so than anything else. It seems to be the branching out and the seeing all the, the classic Instagram bullshit techniques. But striking as well, I wonder, because you do get some wacky stuff in the striking world, but probably not as much sort of serious exploration, right?
It's harder because like take boxing, like as much as it can be incredibly sophisticated, you're still working with the same basic tools. You've got straight punches, hook punches, uppercuts. That's it. Like in jiu-jitsu, it's so knowledge based that like you need to have things categorized. Everybody talks about systems now, which in fact is a perfect ideal term. It's systems building. So you have a system that is the school system, and then you have your individual system, and so on. You're like, well, like, it's really, if I'm taking like boxing, again, like, I'm not for any boxers out there like saying like, oh, jiu-jitsu is much harder. No, not at all. That's absolutely not what I'm saying. But you can get somebody who's like got reasonably good coordination. They're already a little bit athletic. In 6 weeks, you get them looking great. You get them looking great shadow work. Get them looking great on the back. Now you put them with a real fighter, and put them to spar. They're gonna look like a chump. Like, but I think it's easier to enthuse people about it because within a matter of weeks,
you feel good, you look good.
I might not be doing what Floyd Mayweather's doing, but I'm doing what all the people around me are doing. I feel good and I'm hitting hard. And with jiu-jitsu, like, your shit for a good couple of years. Even like doing the drill. That guy who couldn't land a 1-2 on a good amateur. But they can hit the heavy back. And it feels good and solid. You teach somebody an armbar. They don't know which way is up and down yet. It's so jiu-jitsu is different in that respect. It's like it requires people to have a lot more stick-to-itiveness in the early going, because you're finding out every single session that you suck. Even when people aren't even being competitive with you yet, you're crap.
Big time.
But I think that it kind of it weeds people out, really, to be honest. The fact that it is too difficult to get started.
I think that the exact same thing, in that the jiu-jitsu, it's so hard so early on that you see so many people sort of drop off very early. They do a few sessions and they're like, actually, I suck at this and I'm not ready to do it. But then the people that do go for a little bit longer and do sort of get the enjoyment out of that, like sucking at it, tend to stick around, and they seem a lot more like passionate about it. And I think that's quite nice. Whereas again, boxing, you get people will do it, they'll jump in, they'll move around, and then they sort of get bored and move off and think. I mean, not exclusively, obviously. But
I think that's probably what made me better at teaching. Than being a competitor. There's a lot of people who are better competitors than me, better athletes than me, right? But when they find it easy, when it comes naturally to them, the movement comes naturally and stuff like that, they don't necessarily have to analyze why something worked or didn't work, because things just work for them, and then they can just build on that, which is great. Then, the flip side is some of those guys are the ones who can't cope when they go and get stuff. They get graduated to the next belt. They're not winning all the matches anymore. And they go, nah, I'll do something else. Or you get like, Amica Galvao or somebody like that comes out and they're just an exceptional, extraordinary talent. They can keep on building on it. But I mean, I picked Amica Galvao. Amica Galvao might end up being an amazing coach one day. So I'm not picking on him individually. But
I think he is a fan of the show. So
but But just see what I mean? Like, sometimes you get those guys and they can't teach what they do. Oftentimes I had like really like superstar standout athletes I've been training with. Like, oh wow, show me how do you check the leg kick? How do you check like that? I'm like, you just lift your leg up. I'm like, no, you don't. There's much. I'm lifting my leg up and you're knocking me off my feet. Like, they go, just lift your leg up. Because it came naturally. Then they didn't need to analyze what part of my hip, my tensing, etc. They just had the knack. So I think because I never had the knack for anything, and I had to do hundreds and hundreds of reps, and I didn't have very good knowledge retention either, which is absolutely critical for learning jiu-jitsu in particular. You just got to remember a lot of stuff. And I tried everything. I know like some people are like copious note makers. I would write stuff down, and then the day after I would look and I'm like, what the fuck is that?
Yeah,
and I'll draw these little diagrams, and I'm going, that doesn't make any. I don't even. You see what I'm? You know,
I'm exactly the same on that one. Yeah.
Actually, not video works much better for me.
Mm-hmm.
You know, once I was one of the first people to have a video camera. You know, like, and so I would video all the sparring and stuff like that, and watch it back afterwards, and start to analyze. It was one of those like ones with mini discs that you had to transfer onto the computer and stuff like that. You know, but that was made a load of difference for me. So I do loads of video reference now. You know, again, it's about one of the advantages of having the wealth of stuff on YouTube. You know, the disadvantage, you get the white belt coming in doing clinic moves or having things that are sort of disconnected. You know, but you get some really good analytics, even like for free. You know, like there's Limi, BJJ, LIMI, less impressed, more involved.
Oh,
you know, like there's like an analytic channel. You know, like I'm going to buy the subscription to the guy because I've watched his free stuff and I thought it was really good. You know, but even then, you know, like I try to get guys, you know, to watch somebody first. To say, if you've got the time, you know, like it would be ideal if you watched all the matches of that athlete. You know, like I try to encourage people to say, like, pick an athlete who like looks like you, moves like you, has your approach, but is operating at a really high level. So, and then try to watch the matches and now make your own notes and make your own analysis. Then go and watch what somebody else has said. Otherwise, the danger is that it colors your perception.
Yeah, you start looking for what they've said.
You've been spoon-fed the answer already. You know what I mean? You've kind of cheated on. You've done the test whilst looking at the crib sheet. You know, like yeah. But I think what's really useful with them is like sometimes they'll say like, right, I'm looking at knee cut passing at the minute. It's like, right, and then I'll go and see like, you know, like, oh, who's a great knee cut? You know, Tana Dabra. And then this guy has already cut out all of the passes that Tana Dabra's ever done and montaged them into one video. And brilliant. You just saved me 20
so
hours.
Much time.
So I feel like now that I've said it, I'm actually going to have to go and buy a subscription.
You have to back it up.
Yeah. But there's a few channels. There's like Deep Dive Jiu Jitsu. There's many more. Like where like, you know, I think the analysis on those channels is good, but even some of them are like the analysis might be a little bit uninspired on some other channels. You know, but there's already somebody who's gone through the effort of like just clipping up like, you know, all the best octopus guard sweeps. You know, all, you know, and so on. So it's a really useful tool in that respect.
But at what point then would you say then that's a good strategy to take? Because obviously, if you walk in as a day one beginner, you don't know. You know, your arse from your elbow and what's what and what position's what. At what point do you sort of typically find you know enough about, actually, I sort of move like this guy and I'll start to like this and that? Do you think people should dive into that stuff early on or later on?
I mean, it depends what your notion of early is. You know, I mean, I've been training for like 25 years now, you know, so like I think somebody's in early days when they're a blue belt. You know what I mean? You know, for a lot of people think like, oh, wow. I've only been training for like 6 weeks. That blue belt is an expert, you know. Like so it depends on where
your perspective.
I think like, you know, like once you've got all of your basics down, you know, like you know, at least if we're talking pure jiu-jitsu, we're talking about you start to understand like close guard, half guard, open guard, then the subcategories within that. Then understand directions of passing, you know, different types of passing, you know, like loose and tight and so on. You know, and then I understand the mount, how the mount connects to the back. Once you've got that basic blueprint there, then start looking, you know, like, but I think like if you're in a good gym, the coach has got a method and a program that he's been refining probably for years, you know, like, so just stick to the script early on, you know, like, and then start to be experimental, you know. But I've got some guys like, you know, like a blessing and a curse where like, you know, the guys who buy all of the instructionals, watch all of the matches, and they're trying everything very, very early on. Like typically what we used to say was like, you know, like the purple belt is the phase of experimentation. Yeah, it's very tempting, you know, with like, you know, clickbait kind of articles say like, this is what makes a purple belt, this is what makes a brown belt, you know, and they're completely inadequate. They're never going to be able to hit the mark because there's such a huge spectrum, you know, of what the expectation is of one belt or another.
Yeah.
But generally speaking, I think it's not a bad idea that like once people have solidified a basic game as a blue belt, now open up and be experimental. You know, and this was the tack that I took. You know, like I tried loads of different things as a purple belt, and then refined continually on there afterwards. You know, like I kind of solidified things as a brown belt, and then in the process of being a black belt, I've become very clear about what I'm good at and what is not what I don't have potential to be good at. So yeah, but it's difficult to say. Like, where I've had some guys who've been very like open and experimental, and they've got like no consistency in their game. But I didn't want to clamp down on their creativity. So I went from having a guy who was like kind of a pretty average blue belt to now a really good purple belt. Like, because it didn't try to smother him. Where there's been times where I thought like, and people were correct. But I was working on cradle passing. When I was still a blue belt. And the coach says to me, will you just stop fucking around and learn how to pass the half guard properly? And he was right, because what I was doing was not being able to do the hard work of understanding how to clear a knee shield, how to get a guy's shoulders flat on the mat, immobilizing, and then the pass would lead to, or I was doing an awkward stuff. Like, cradle passing is very difficult to solidify the position, and it was complicating matters on the other side. So even when I was successful with the pass, it didn't work. But then, so I left it alone and I listened to the coach, and he was right, and I learned how to do the classic method. But then years later, I started seeing guys doing cradle passing. It was like, there's a good solution for no-gi sometimes. And then and I thought, was my creativity stifled there? Did I become like too much of a paint by numbers predictable guy? Because I was shot on early on when I was trying. But I was the annoying guy who go like, oh, you could do it like this and you could do it like that. And the coach said, you can't even do the basic right yet. So, but it's a little, and they were correct. I was being too experimental too soon. But then I ended up being too rigid and too stuck on a basic curriculum, which made me predictable. So it's an individual thing. I think like I'm lucky in the respect that I'm not running like a big Gris Baja franchise that's got like 250 members or something like that, where like I can't possibly pay attention,
to every single individual.
Which is why you've got to have a curriculum. If you're dealing with that many people, like everybody's got to be on the same page and so on. I've got like probably in most of my classes there's like 20 to 30 people tops. So I can know every single individual person in there and be familiar
and their games and stuff like that.
Stuff, Once I got like, if I get a class of like 50 people or something one day, like everybody's just gonna have to, it's so.
And that's quite interesting as well, because that probably somewhat answers my question, what I was sort of speaking to you about earlier. I noticed in your class, you teach a lot, not necessarily about, well, I say a lot, I've obviously only done one or two, but you mention sort of the top guys in the game. You say, this is how so-and-so does it. This is their style. And I see a lot of your students are very responsive to that. Is there a reason you do it? Because that's quite interesting.
Well, one of the reasons why I started using so much sort of video reference and stuff like that was because there was a lot of times where I couldn't actually physically do things. I've smashed all the ligaments out of my knee, and my neck's jacked, and there's a lot of stuff that I used to be able to do that I can't do. So like I would start, showing them like, right, okay, well, I can show you the basic, I'm here, but look at it in action. And I felt like it resonated with people a lot better, Like this is why I work with Harry and George Hardwick, So we'll go and like, we'll work on a position every week, and then we'll try to find like really good examples of it in action from really high level operators and see why did it work, why did it not work, when you've got top flight guys. And that was quite useful, so if I couldn't physically make that movement, we could at least
that's the reference,
right? And also, like, I'm not famous enough anymore for people to trust me. Like that people want to know what the black belt world champion's doing.
Who the guys that are the guys at the moment? What are they up to?
So people are not necessarily going to say like, oh, this is what I think is best. So normally sneakily what I'll do is like I'll decide what I think's best, and then I'll look for another guy who agrees with me. Who's black belt world champion or ADCC champion or something like that. I'll go like, look, this is what he's doing, and I'll get backup from a famous stranger, But then also it's quite handy because it gives people homework, like I can start to like nudge people in a certain direction, without forcing them, what I mean? So I say like, okay, this week we're looking at this person's guard passing. This week we're looking at this person's submission, and then it'll give them like a little, like sneakily give them homework where I suggest to them this will entertain you, and then they learn by by proxy.
Yeah, and I guess they're just immersing themselves in it a little bit more as well. And do you always do it that way? Is it always like, instead of going, right, today we're working on close guard or whatever, you'd say, oh, we're going to work on so-and-so style of close guard or passing or whatever?
Oftentimes now, when I've got like, I'm quite lucky in that this gym's been going for quite a long time. So oftentimes we'll have a session where there are more purple, brown, and black belts on the mat than there are white belts.
Yeah.
You know, like, so like those guys have been training with me for 10 to 20 years, some of them. You know, so they've already seen my basics. They've heard the script about the principle of it and stuff like that, you know, which can be illuminating to a new student, you know, with like, I heard you say this 20 times before.
Yeah.
Right. So they know all that stuff, and then if we can give them some inspiration from this person or that person, you know, like that kind of, it just seems to help communicate it. So so I'm using more video reference than ever before now.
I really like that as an idea. I mean, just when you were talking about it, it was quite interesting to see the class engage with that as well, because oftentimes I've been places where people will go, so and so did this at the ADCC, whatever, and everyone just sort of goes, okay, sure they did.
Yeah.
But everyone was very engaged and sort of.
My next plan is actually I'm going to get a TV mounted on the wall, like a big screen TV, and have the things ready.
Have it rolling
instead of crowding around a little iPhone trying to make out what's going on. I'm gonna get that going. So
that's good shout.
Yeah, I just feel like, like I much prefer watching, like the videos we were talking about before, like the analysis where you'll see the same position, where you'll see it in real time against a real live opponent. I much prefer that to watching an instructional where somebody talks me through it, like sitting in class. So I don't know, I understand it better, even though there's not necessarily the same level of instruction. I'm doing precisely this with my hand or whatever. I've sort of seen enough of that. I kind of feel like I know enough, where like sometimes if somebody's showing a technique the way that I might present it in class, it's a bit like a lot of the information can sort of be redundant. Well, like, I know that. Like, I want to see how it actually functions.
Yeah.
So watching live matches is is more beneficial, but it's just simply that, like, actually watching jiu-jitsu matches, like, it's like watching paint dry most of the time. You know what I mean? Like, and then you got to watch like 5 minutes of like somebody just stuck somewhere before the thing that you're actually interested in happens, the thing that's illuminating. So that's why I'm quite a fan of those clip analysis things.
Yeah, the short. Here's the action bit.
Yeah, but again, that's I'm back to the analogy of the food. Like you run the risk there that you're having a snack, not having a meal. You know what I mean? Like you got to prepare it properly. You got to have the right sort of balance of ingredients, so that somebody's not just eating the full packet of biscuits and not eating the vegetables.
Yeah, I like that analogy quite a lot. And then pivoting ever so slightly from the jiu-jitsu, is it just jiu-jitsu you're doing now, or do you still practice your striking and things?
I still practice myself. We've got a boxing coach here, Dr. Stoneham. He trained me for a charity boxing fight.
I was going to say it wasn't that long, last year or so.
It was just over a year ago. I keep my hand in. I'm still interested in those sports, but I don't coach them anymore. The only MMA fighters, I still work with Harry and George Hardwick.
Yeah, I've seen that.
Primarily as the jiu-jitsu coach. But yeah, there's a few reasons. Like, I never got the right guys. I never got the right group together. And so financially, I just couldn't. Basically, I couldn't afford it anymore. Like the amount of expenses that go into coaching a fighter, it cost me so much money over the years, and it never came back. And also I lost my nerve. Basically, I can't cope with it anymore. I think I used to be pretty gung ho about seeing people get hurt. I was fairly cavalier about the way that I treated my own safety,
right?
And I could cope with other people getting hurt. And then as time went on, eventually, you spend a lot of time with your fighters, and you get very close to them. And there was a sort of high-profile fight where somebody got quite badly hurt, and I should have chucked the towel in, and I didn't.
Right.
And it took a lot out of me. And then after that happened a few more times, even sometimes when my fighter won, but I'm looking at the other guy and I'm thinking, like, is this guy going to get back up? Or is he going to know who he is when he gets back up? And I think, like, now with the benefit of hindsight, knowing what it's done to me, I can't remember anybody's names.
Right.
Like I thought I wasn't getting punchy because I wasn't slurring my words, but I have got punchy, and it's okay for me. You should call it, say, CTE, but since I've got it, I can call myself punchy. But yeah, it damaged me a lot, the sport, and there wasn't the level of financial recompense that made it worthwhile. And I think when you look at like an NFL player or whatever, those guys know they're going in an early grave.
Yeah.
They know they're going to be seriously damaged. But they're going to live out the rest of the days in a mansion with a pool.
Luxury, yeah.
Unless they're a fool with their money, they've sacrificed a little of their life to burn brighter, shorter, and then in the knowledge that their mum and dad aren't going to be dying in a care home. They're going to have personal care. Their kids aren't going to go hungry. They're not going to miss out on education. They're going to be able to go to whichever university they want. And,
they've set up everything for their family.
And I think like for MMA fighters, a lot of you you're in your late 30s, early 40s, a little bit late to retrain. It's hard to get into another occupation, and a lot of people are just struggling away, without a pot to piss in. I think like if I really believed that there was a good shot for a lot of these guys to actually get somewhere, I think like I might still invest time and take the risk. But I think like this sport it's just not worth it.
Yeah,
it wasn't worth it. It wasn't worth it for me, and I don't believe for many of the guys that I've seen come through the door that it's going to be worth it for them. You have to be an unreal talent to get
to really crack it. Yeah.
I
think that's the thing, because it's such a hot topic of conversation, the money side of things at the moment, of not even just the UFC but MMA in general, because if you actually think about it, it's so hard as a professional fighter. You go, wow, you're a professional fighter, but actually even you fight on local shows and things, even the bottom end of the UFC, sort of the new guys there, you don't actually really make much more than some guy that's sitting 9 to 5 in an office job or whatever.
I think what people perceive is you make shelf stacker wages.
Yeah.
Nothing against people who stack shelves. But also
you're putting your brain on the line.
Shelf stacking, it might bore your brain to death, but it's not knocking them out. So yeah, there you go. I can't remember what I was going to say. Point proved.
There you go. Just about the sort of the lower guys, like how you actually don't really make as much money as people think.
Yeah. I think
perception of it.
That there is a perception and expectation when you say you're a professional athlete.
Yeah.
MMA fighters, by anybody, even guys who are fighting in the UFC, a lot of guys, unless they're champion status, they're working another job.
Yeah.
You are by definition a semi-professional. I remember once I was selling tickets to the people that I was coaching. But one of my fighters was also on my undercard. And so, you got your ticket? He said, I already bought it from so and so. You're like, because he's an amateur, he needs the money. You're like, but you're a professional. I'm like,
nah, mate, I need that way more.
He's got a job. That's why he's an amateur. This is my job. I only get paid if people come to see me. And you think but his assumption was, he must be getting
it's just a starter.
He must be getting grands and grands for this. And we're like, I'm getting a couple $100, mate. I need to sell tickets to make the money. But yeah, it's and I think people, they believe that if they make it, they're going to be beyond that. They say, I'm not going to have to sell the tickets anymore. That'll all get done for me. I just go there and perform. And he's like, well, have a look. Do you remember the footage of there's the brain going again. Oh, anyway, top fighter, and then he breaks down in tears because he's got a $50,000 bonus. He breaks down and he's saying I've got a baby on the way.
It was Aspinall or something, wasn't it? It was a big name. Yeah. I think I have seen that as his first UFC fight or something. Got his bonus. Yeah.
And people go, this is what it's all about. Isn't that great? Isn't that beautiful to see? So no, mate, I think you misunderstood what went on there. You've got one of the guys who's the top, not just in his country, the top in the world as a professional sportsman, and all he wants to do is buy a 2 up, 2 down house so his missus and kid have a place to live.
Yeah,
I think and then he was banking on a bonus.
Yeah,
so it's the thing people don't understand. There's no such thing as a bonus. There are half of your wages withheld for losing.
Yeah, that is always crazy to me.
it's something that like it's purely framing. Do you know what I mean? That you get extra if you're like, or if it's really great, you get like, so you get the amount that you need to live on the whim and on the fortune or of some executive who goes, that was good enough for you to have a living wage. Otherwise, you're going to keep on suffering.
Yeah.
So,
and if you lose a close decision or something and you've torn yourself up and you're out, that has always seemed mental to me. The fact that you can go, oh, well, you get half of what you actually potentially could get paid for losing. And it's so easy to drop a decision in these things, or just, eat the wrong thing, takes you down or whatever.
But that's the thing, when you look at the top levels of the game, people are so worried about losing because you don't just lose a fight. Losing a fight is bad enough. Like losing a fight's heartbreaking and often very fucking painful. But if you're going to lose your job as well, well, that's terrifying. So what are people going to do? They're going to be very strategic and very tactical. So then they go like, right, okay, well, we can't have that. Maybe we could give them job security. Maybe we could give them some more money. But that would come out of the shareholders' pockets. So what we're going to do instead is withhold more wages and incentivize people to fight in a wild way.
Crazy,
You think
put the risk out.
Yeah. You think like, well, if you want to get enough money, you got to swing for the rafters. We want to see knockout artists.
Do some wild shit.
Yeah. I mean, do you remember like there was outrage about Damian Maia against this is fucking hell with names again. There's the scene for you. He had the terrible rap tune.
A terrible rap tune? I don't know who that is.
But it helps out. Oh, he was a brilliant fighter. He got knocked out by Jake Paul.
Oh
God,
Tyron Woodley.
Tyron Woodley.
Yes, yeah. Oh, now I know what you mean by the rap tune.
The bit of my brain that stores names is absolutely crippled. Tyron Woodley and Damian Maia, they got absolutely pilloried for it. I thought it was great. I loved it. I watched it a couple of times, watching like the little bits of hand fighting up against the fence. Admittedly, I'm a very niche nerd about hand fighting against the fence. I can see why it wasn't the casual fans' favorite.
Yeah,
but they both fought. They didn't. I can see
they weren't
why,
chilling.
I can understand why you say like, okay, right. Well, that was if you're actually engaging in passivity. Like two guys who won't engage and they just circle each other. You're like, you didn't give the crowd what they came to pay for. Like what they paid to come see. You're like, but if you get engaged, it's like, well, there's just aspects of fighting that you don't like. You're like, well, sorry, that is the sport of mixed martial arts. You're like, there are many other fighting sports where those things
don't exist.
They're explicitly prohibited. You're like, you can watch Muay Thai if you like. There's plenty of it out there. You're like, you don't like any clinching at all? Well, there's kickboxing. So what you're saying is like, this is our format, but we don't actually like it because not everybody understands it. Therefore, we're going to manipulate the finances, in a way that punches down in order to incentivize people to fight in a particular way. Who does this benefit? Not the athletes.
No.
Anyway, I'm incredibly disillusioned with the sport of MMA.
And that's the tough thing, I suppose, as someone that obviously has been so involved in it, and your livelihood now sort of is off the back of that sort of thing.
And the problem with being disillusioned is it doesn't have an antonym. There's no such thing as re-illusioned.
Yeah,
it's
good point. Yeah,
and so I loved MMA for such a long time, and now I think I hate it. But again, this is hate isn't the opposite of love, is it? It's indifference. So I'm still not indifferent to it. I'm ambivalent about it. And sometimes I feel like I hate it more than I love it. But I'm still passionate about it. I just
in the other direction.
But I just can't get involved because when I've got a fighter that somebody that I care about now, I can't sleep the days before they fight. You can't go into a person's corner a nervous wreck. That's not what you need from a corner man.
No, that's the last thing you want.
And it's never been because I don't believe in them. It's never been because I didn't have faith that that they were going to be able to, that they had all their ability. It was simply me. I can't bear the thought of it anymore. Yeah. So yeah, unfortunately, yeah, I just lost it. I just lost my nerve. You know?
Well, I mean that sort of thing, and I mean when you lay it out like that, it totally makes sense, and it's quite nice to hear that, because so often I think you get coaches will sort of give it the hype, like we were saying, like you don't want someone nervous in your corner and like giving that sort of energy. You got people that just give it too much pressure. Oh, he's going to be fine, he's going to smash it, whatever. But sometimes actually, it's quite nice to hear that compassionate side of like, do you know what, it is a brutal sport, and it is tough to see some of those things.
It's like I was never a very good hype man. I was never, you get like slapping guys in the face, going, "It's your fight, it's your fight. You're gonna smash."
Yeah, I'm not into that shit.
Because I never liked that. I was like, "Fuck off, man." But like I never liked that anyway, and I couldn't sell that. That's not my personality. So I like working with Harry and George because it's just an operation. Like everything is clockwork. Like they've got their. I don't even have to get involved in the warm up now. Like they've just got it down. Like it runs like a machine. Like
I know what they're up to. Yeah.
And like they would not appreciate somebody getting in the face going, "It's your fight." No, it's the stupidest expression. So they wouldn't like that anyway. But there are guys who just need to be psyched up and filled with confidence, and have their balls tickled a little bit before they, metaphorically, of course.
Yeah. Well, you never know. But yeah, I mean, I've had that conversation with a couple of people on the podcast, because I always find it interesting, the psychological side of things for that, because some people, like you say, absolutely want to be hyped up. Some people want to be very calm. Some people want to be very relaxed. And I mean, I've dabbled with very low level stuff, but I'm always very curious about that, and I try and change it up every time. I'm like, let's get someone in my corner that's going to be like, let's fucking go. And then the next time I'm like, no, I'm going to be super calm and mellow and things, and trying to find what's right. And it is different for so many different people. And I think that is fascinating how people tick differently and how they come out and perform as well, and what an impact it actually has.
Yeah, it's a really individual thing. You have to really know your athlete. And some coaches are very good at playing different characters for different people. I've got one approach, and and if you don't like it, then you're gonna have to work with somebody else. But like, some coaches are really good at at knowing how to deal with different athletes and sort of act a different character depending. But yeah, that's again, like I'm glad I'm done with it now. I'm not missing working corners every Saturday night.
That's nice. Yeah.
I think like for a long time, like I hadn't really come to terms with the fact that I was retired, and I was not jealous but envious of the person. I'm thinking like, I wish it was me, really. Like I wanted to be the one doing it. And I remember, like, I think the first time I went to a glory event in somewhere in France anyway. Oh, it was a big, beautiful stadium. And thousands of people, TV cameras on. I was with Jamie Bates. You know Jamie Bates. He was being with Glory for really like #1 kickboxer in the UK for like, God, over a decade. Really, and he's a great guy. And I remember like being backstage, like hearing somebody cracking the pads next to us, whack, whack, whack. I thought, God, it's not me that's going to be on the other end of that. I thought it was the first time that I actually I thought I just wanted to be there to support him, not in fact there to vicariously get a little bit of the rub. I actually didn't want to do it anymore. I think like I tried competing a little. Like I was saying, I went to compete last year just to seemed like a good plan. I don't miss that anymore. It's not me anymore.
It's just not there. Yeah.
But I don't know how to compete half in, half out.
That makes sense.
I was all in, and it would dominate every moment of my life. Like every waking second, I was completely obsessed with it,
focused on it. Yeah.
And I couldn't figure out how to moderate that. So I just think, well, just don't compete, because I'm not very nice when I'm competing. Like people like, it's mostly jokes now. Because the guy, obviously, if they're still here training with me, then they're forgiving me.
Yeah, it can't be that bad.
About, like, so do you remember this thing? Do you remember when you told me off for this? Or do you remember when you said this to me? And I was like, well, no, I can't because of the brain damage. But also, I sound fucking awful. I sound like a horrible person. And I was horrible to be around. I was like my wife, like, only just forgiven me. Maybe, like I was fucking terrible. I was an awful person. Like, but I was a good competitor.
Right,
like,
yeah.
And it seemed like there was a corollary between like how ruthless and how unforgiving I was and how well I would compete. I think like I had to work really hard to let that go. Like, and now I don't want to reawaken it. So people ask me, "Oh, you could do like the masters jiu-jitsu thing." Like, I probably could, like, but you wouldn't want to be in my gym anymore. Like it's I wouldn't I wouldn't be pleasant to be around.
Even with the jiu-jitsu, you reckon it's not necessarily just the sort of the striking element. It would be it's the competitiveness of it.
Yeah, it's the competitiveness. One time I was going to compete. I ended up doing a Thai boxing fight. It was like a post-retirement.
I think is this the one they did? Alan and that lot did the documentary. I really enjoyed that.
I had a great time. Like actually being there with Alan in the place, I had a great time. But in the run-up to it, I didn't have a great time. Because I was trying to relive the old days, but everybody's moved on. A lot of my training partners, they retired and they got kids or they got their own gym and all that sort of stuff. And I, kind of cobbled it all together. So I was training with my own students, and I remember like somebody couldn't check a low kick, so I beat his leg black and blue. And I was going like, I've showed you this loads of times. And I thought like, that was terrible. Like the guy paid to be my student, and I beat him up because he wasn't doing good enough. And I was so upset with myself. I thought like, what a terrible thing to do. But because I was competing, I was thinking like that. And even like before I decided it was going to be Thai boxing, well, I was just grappling again. And then also I used to grapple with people like, oh, okay, show you the move, and then I'll put the thing. I said, no, I was passing people's guards and I was pinning them. And I was, putting them in like horrible holds, torturing them a little bit, And then I remember people looking around going like, whoa, what was that? What have I done to you? I said, I'm competing now. I thought, do you know what? Like, I was really unpleasant to people, and then I look back and I think all the time that I was a competitor, and like I was awful, like. And I thought at the time, I liked being me, I liked myself, I liked what I saw in the mirror, like. And then when I look back, I think like, you were a prick, like what a knob, like.
Yeah.
So like, yeah, I think like when people ask me, say, oh, you want to compete again? I said,
nah, leave that to rest.
I got this injury, I got that. I said, it's not really that. It's not really that. I don't like myself as a competitor. Like, and also like, I used to think that I didn't want a gym full of doing dads BJJ with part-timers and all this sort of stuff. And then actually, I love these guys. Like I love hanging out with them. I love talking with them. We've got lots in common. Like it's the only it's the only thing that gets me out of the house. But working with the sort of the high level professional athletes that I used to work with, like, I don't want to be around those guys. Like it's not actually where I want to be anymore. I like doing dad's BJJ.
Yeah,
it's nice.
Much more mellow.
yeah. It doesn't mean that it's not. It doesn't mean that the training's wishy-washy. It doesn't mean that it's not realistic. It doesn't mean that it's not good quality. Like, but people whose only focus is on being the best in the world, being hyper competitive about every little thing, like, I used to love that and I hate it now. But again, love and hate are not antithetical. Like it's once I'm indifferent about it, then I'll go and do something else.
That's it. Yeah. If it's total apathy, then who cares anymore? It's quite nice and refreshing to hear that. That's a very like honest take on it, because a lot of people wouldn't be that sort of open about it, and especially to say sort of you didn't like how it affected you, because it makes a difference when you're thinking in that competitive mindset. And I mean, to be able to be like, actually, I think the right thing is to step away, and you're happier for it.
Well, it took a long time.
I'm sure that wasn't like an overnight thing.
About 10 years.
Right, wow.
Like, so I think I retired in 2013, and it was like my life ended. And in some respect now, like in fact did. And 10 years later, it's for the best, because I realized just what a prick I was.
And I'm quite curious then. So did that sort of competitive side, is that something that has always been sort of your style? Is that something that you've picked up from traveling around? Because I know you've traveled a lot and trained with some incredible people and great places.
I think it was probably more like a product of my life. Where like, the thing about the alpha male. Of course, it's massively discredited But you know, it still pervades, you know. But like, you know, of course, the author, you know the story, right? The author retracted the premise of the book, saying I made a terrible glaring mistake. You know, I was looking at wolves in captivity. Yeah. Wolves in nature don't behave like this, you know. And so superficially you go, yeah, this is bullshit, right? You know, like, but actually, it's not necessarily completely without merit, because, you know, look at the way that people behave, like wolves in captivity. Well, how do people behave in prison? How do young men behave in school? Like, how do people behave in a workplace? Places where they are essentially involuntarily. You know, like, you know, you're very lucky if you're like voluntarily in the. I'm very lucky that I choose to work here. I like to be here. You know, like, I couldn't work in an office. I couldn't work in a warehouse. You know, I get sacked straight away. You know, like, give me 2 weeks. Like, I think I had one real job. You know, like, I lasted 2 weeks. You know, I'm not cut out for it. You know, you know, but how do people behave in these environments? You know, like the whole alpha male thing. You know, like, I think the major mistake with it, you know, is not that the thesis is incorrect because it was looking at wolves in captivity. You know, like, the idea, well, and obviously, yeah, of course, accept
that specific thing.
Yeah, people aren't fucking wolves. You know, like, people are people. Like, there's some fairly significant differences. So I'm not being, but I think the main problem is the alpha male idea. You know, like, it's not even down to, you know, like, the incorrect theory due to the place or whatever. It's the idea that it's good. You know, like, you think like, yeah, people do operate like that, and people are successful on certain metrics by being the alpha male. Like, but it's not a good thing.
No, yeah.
That's the problem with it. You know, like, that it's pitched as you want to be.
Yeah, that's what to strive for.
That. You think like, no, that's a fucked up consequence of the fact that we're not supposed to live like this. Like, people aren't supposed to be in jail. You know, like, schools are not necessarily good for all children the way that they're arranged. I'm not saying education isn't good. I'm just saying the way that schools are. Yeah. And the workplace isn't good. You know, like, when you look at like consumerism, you know, you ever hear the expression that like consumerism is the perfection of slavery?
No, but no? I mean, I like that already.
Again, like, so, well, like, the problem with slavery outside of morality. If I'm a slave,
the one problem with slavery.
The one problem. If I'm a slave owner with no morals, what am I worried about? Yeah. They're going to revolt. You know, like, they're going to. I'm outnumbered. You know, they're going to see me in the big house, and they're going to find a way to come and do me harm. Yes, or they're going to escape and go somewhere where things are better for them. You think like, well, now that we live in an entire world of consumerism, you're like, where do you escape to? Yeah. You're like, and even better, you're like, to lack the notion. You're like, you can't see the master in the big house. You're like, the billionaires or
somewhere else.
A billionaire might as well be a fictional character, a ghost. Like, I can't see them. I can't feel them. I don't know. The ways that they influence my life are almost imperceptible, unless you're like politically and
unless you're
very aware. You're like it's not fun. But even now, like, where are they?
Yeah, that's
somewhere.
It. So far removed from your day-to-day life.
But of course, in every way, like, they affect everything about like this place, the lights that are on, the fact that the bricks and mortar are here. You're like, this is all like capitalists have created all this, and we exist within it and can't see an escape. But this is where like the idea that consumerism is the perfection of slavery. That not only do I not see the master, not only do I not have anywhere to escape to, I desire it.
Yeah, I've got no problem with it.
Yeah. And I think like this is what happened. Previous generations that were like came up in the 60s and the 70s that benefited from socialism. Come the 80s, obviously, it was Thatcherism here, it was Reaganism in the USA. And so, like, I'll tell you what, I'll do you a swap. I'll take away all of these guarantees that you got, and I'll give you cheap things instead. You know, like, so like you think like now, like I have things that are unimaginable to my child self.
Yeah.
I got 2 TVs in my house. I got an iPhone. I got all this stuff that I could afford. You're like, but can you afford to buy your own house? Like, no. Can you afford to go to university? You're like, so well, you can, but you're going to enter the workplace in debt
if you buy into it.
You think like and then you got people want to have children and they want to put away money for their child's education. You're still paying off your education. Or like, or you can't have the child because you can't buy a house that has an extra room in for them. Like, so it's in this respect, like, yeah, consumerism is the perfection of slavery.
I like that as a phrase. Yeah, that is it's a heavy, fucked up topic.
Normally, like I end up like waffling about stuff, and then I ended up like on a rant about like why Stalin's military tactics was somehow like jiu-jitsu, and I was thinking, what the fuck was that talking about? Like I was, I can't even remember what the hell I was on about. Like just end up.
But it got there.
Well, Harry and George were telling us to say like they were down at MFA gym. He said like one night instead of a warm up, we got a lecture about why the Russian AK-47 is superior to Czech copies. Like for 20 minutes.
That'll get you, that'll get you hyped up.
So at least mine aren't the maddest.
Yeah, well, at least you've got a broad spectrum of knowledge and skills there, and you lace it in very well. But migrating slightly back to the martial arts side of things, one thing I did want to ask you about, which I've quite admired about your approach to it, is you are somewhat different to a lot of guys with an MMA background, where you really have sought out specialisms and you have a very open mind to very different things. Because obviously we met initially through Alan Orr and his camp, and I know you're very into that stuff, but it's not a very popular approach for most MMA people.
No, I think I was always just interested in everything. I didn't feel like a sort of like, as much as I love jiu-jitsu, I never felt like, because I love jiu-jitsu, then I discredit catch wrestling. Like, and now actually what you see, if you look at like no-gi jiu-jitsu, tons of it's catch wrestling. Yeah. Like loads of it, So I was always fascinated by that, and I think it was probably by virtue of me now, because I was very skeptical about Wing Chun. Like I didn't believe, like I got nothing against it, and or like if somebody said to me like, "Well, I do Wing Chun," I'm not going to laugh at them about it, like, but I didn't take them as being like credible, practical martial artists on face value, and I think like via meeting Alan, I was like, actually that blew my mind straight away.
I had exactly the same experience.
I thought like, but it didn't mean that like I didn't still love boxing. Yeah. I didn't think, right, well, like there is nothing to learn from boxing. I no longer enjoy boxing. Love boxing. But again, like, like amateur style boxing and professional style boxing are radically different. Russian schools of boxing are radically different to American schools of boxing, or Cuban schools of boxing, and so on. Like, and they all have merits, and they all have, curiosities that may or may not work for you. And I thought like, because Alan taught us Chinese boxing. Yeah. Like, so, again, my Wing Chun is like pretty poor. But what he did was crib from it, like understanding that we don't necessarily have, because we had the demands of wrestling and jiu-jitsu and all of the other stuff that we had to do. So like, well, I'm going to shortcut the more salient points for you and try to get you to the right conclusions without necessarily having to master all of the forms or whatever. Right. So I think Alan was really probably the reason why I became like so open-minded, because when I realized something that I'd discredited or written off before, and now realize is massively effective, it was me who misunderstood it.
I think that's a very interesting approach, because nowadays most people, and maybe it's just the modern era, most people for MMA go straight into the route of, you've got to do jiu-jitsu, you've got to do wrestling, and you've got to do some Thai boxing. And that's sort of the vanilla package now. But it's quite interesting to hear someone of your caliber be open to exploring all these other different things and seeing those.
Well, I think, if you at once point we had the archetype of like the boxer wrestler, or the jiu-jitsu Muay Thai. You think like, well, okay, right, well, I can't kick if I'm in my wrestling stance, but I can throw an overhand. Right, okay, cool. There's one archetype. Or Anderson Silva, like couldn't defend the takedown as well and simultaneously be able to knee and kick like he does. So he would stand up right, but if you took him down, he had an amazing guard. Like you still, you could be in his guard and you can't reach his head. Like, right, great, that worked for him. Like, but I think now, like, if you look at like the diversity of skills, like there's very few people that you can really pigeonhole into an archetype, up until the point where, like, did you see Dricus du Plessis fight Sean Strickland?
Yeah.
Fuck me, like the two guys doing everything quote unquote wrong.
Wrong, yeah.
With nobody else in the world to beat them.
No.
You know what I mean? Like
championship caliber.
Like that's why I was thinking now. I'm looking and going like, do you know what? Should I have not bothered teaching people how to hold a stance, step forward, step backwards? I just say, do you know what, guys? Just spar.
Yeah, just do your thing.
Yeah, just spar. And 90% of you are going to get knocked out. 9% of you are going to get nowhere. But 1% of you might end up being world champion.
Yeah. There's merit to it.
Yeah, that's what I like. That's why I don't. Well, there's a lot of reasons why I don't gamble. But I definitely don't gamble on MMA. People say who's going to win this fight? And people can give lovely in-depth analysis about it and stuff like that. I just go, I don't fucking know.
No,
there's that many times that I've had to eat my heart. I just go, I don't know who's going to win.
Yeah, same. I've given up because anytime I get too invested now, where I'm like, yeah, do you know what? I put even just a $5 on that guy. Always wrong. Always. And it doesn't matter how dorky I watch all the fights of all the promotions. I'm talking about martial arts all day. I'm thinking about martial arts all day. I'm talking to people about martial arts all day. Always wrong. Doesn't matter. I don't know shit.
There's the thing, I've known a few gamblers in my time anyway, on a side note, and they always tell you when they win.
Yeah.
I won 300 quid on this, I won 500 quid on that. And then the next thing you know, they're standing on the bridge, waiting to throw themselves off, saying, I've lost the house. This is
so
left
much. Yeah.
So don't gamble, kids.
Yeah. There's a nice PSA at the end.
Tom, I think I'm going to have to.
I was about to say exactly the same. I think I saw your wife floating around. So thank you very much for giving up your time, Pete.
My pleasure.
And that was beautiful. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for listening. Really means a lot. I hope you enjoyed it. I think talking to Pete, I gained a load of insights and I was very fortunate to be able to train with him. Please do show him some love. Go and support him on social media. Drop him a follow if you're in the area or wherever visiting. Please do stop in. Very friendly gym, very high level. It's always worth a visit. In the meantime, please don't forget to support the podcast. Drop us a follow on Instagram, Spotify, YouTube, TikTok, whatever you're on, we're there. It's at CWAMA podcast. Please do review the show, share it with other martial artists, and just help us grow, and we'll keep the content coming. Until next time, see you then.